So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will open the session now. I'm very happy to welcome you all here in the water session. We will put the Slido on. And the first thing we will do is to find out who is in the room. So you will enter through Slido your organization and your name and role. So, does it work? So you are here now in a session which will be quite interactive. We will have a short presentation at the beginning that will explain how the session will be organized. And I think I can already pass the floor to Catherine.
Okay, super, thank you. Is this okay? Super. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you'll find today to be quite an interactive event. There are several of us here to present to you today. If I can figure out how to change the slides, I will tell you who. Any idea which button? Super, thank you very much. So there are several HIPs here from various organisations, from myself from Arup with a couple of my colleagues, Liliana, Mads and Ajgar. We have Katarina from the Department of Environment. We have Willem joining us from the Flanders Environment Agency, and we have Abrecht, who's here from Dildaris. So the intention is that we're going to start off. Willem is going to give an overview of some of the work he's doing right now that's specifically relevant to DestinE. And then we're going to talk you through a bit of a workshop. So we hopefully will get some input from you guys. We're going to try and make it as interactive as we can in the room. So I'm encouraging you all to embrace it, please, and chat to your neighbour if you have one, and hopefully get some useful output from this on how we could actually develop DestinE into the future. So I'm just going to pass over to Willem to start. Thanks. I think it's that.
Oh yeah, okay. And I hope this works. Thank you and welcome to this afternoon session. I am Willem and I work at Waterinfo in Flanders, Belgium. And as an introduction to this afternoon session, I'm going to give a very quick overview of the water system in Flanders and the digital twins it already has. So I don't know where to point this actually. Maybe I should. Ah, okay.
That's the right one.
Okay. Okay, yeah, okay, thanks. So the water system in Flanders, actually the name Flanders is derived from an old Germanic word for stream. So a bit less famously so than our neighbors and friends to the north in the Netherlands, it's also a highly managed water system and a lot of water in a very densely populated area in Europe. So managing all this tends to be a bit complicated, and at a high level it looks a little bit like this. So we have the navigable waterways in blue on the map, and that's both the artificial ones, the canals, that's the more straight ones, and the natural ones, and they are managed by the Vlaamse Waterweg, and also by the Waterbouwkundig Laboratorium, which acts as a knowledge institute and is responsible for modeling that and providing measurements on all these waterways. Then in green we have the category 1 or the larger unnavigable waterways, which are managed by the Flanders Environment Agency, which I belong to. And then there is also Agentschap Maritieme Dienstverlening en Kust, which is responsible for managing the coastal waters in Flanders. When we zoom a little bit in, we have the smaller category 2 and 3 waterways, and they are managed by the provinces, of which we have 5 in Flanders. And the category 3, they are in theory managed by the communities, so even smaller, but there is a tendency that they transfer the management of those to the provinces. And then we zoom in even a little bit further, we have the grachten, or what we call the dike, the ditches, and they can be either public, mostly managed by the communities, or private, and they are managed by the owners of the land most of the time. And then we have something special, which will also be known to the Dutch people in the room, which are the polders en wateringen, which are special associations dedicated to managing areas with a highly managed water system, mostly low-lying flat areas where you have a lot of artificial pumping, managing of the water level. So it's a lot of different organizations working on water in Flanders, and to have them all work together and work jointly on a common goal, we have what we call the Coordination Commission on Integral Water Management at the Flanders level, in which all of these instances are represented. Now, why do I show all this? Because this is not a session on governments, it's one on digital twins. In November 2010, we had severe flooding in Flanders. We got a wake-up call again a couple of years ago, which was mainly in Wallonia. But in 2010, we had a big impact by flooding. And one of the conclusions was that all of these different organizations, they lack a little bit a common platform or a common source or outlet where all this information that they generate and all their operational knowledge is joined together. And that was one of the reasons we had such a big impact. So out of that came Water Info, where I work now, or where I am the coordinator of now. And these are the 4 agencies of the Flanders regional government that started it. It's been online for about 10 years now. And in origin, we are a crisis information platform. So we publish all the information of all these actors in water management in Flanders with respect to crisis information on flooding from the rivers, so the fluvial flooding, tidal flooding with seawater, also excessive rainfall, which can cause pluvial flooding, so the water doesn't end their water course. We're starting on that. It's not finished yet. We don't really have the operational models for it yet, and also on droughts. So that was the origin 10 years ago. You can see all the points for which we provide flooding information there. And we also display or distribute the forecasting information 48 hours in advance, detailed forecasting, and then 10 days in advance it's more of a risk forecasting or a hazard forecasting, a little more general, like it might flood, prepare yourself. And when there is flooding occurring, now everything looks green, or a couple of days ago everything looked green, now still, but you will see these dots turn first orange and then red when the hazard level increases. So secondary role that we have is we are a data platform, so all these dots also, most of them also represent measured data. And we also publish those data, water levels, discharges, also rainfall. We operate a couple of rainfall gauges. So this is a little bit more popular data that we have, and you can download those. So we have an open data policy, so you can download those by merely clicking on our website, or we also have an API for the more tech-savvy people to download the data you want at regular intervals or in big batches. And the tertiary role that we have is we are a reference information platform. So we host the Flanders Hydrographic Atlas, which is an atlas where everything that has water in it in Flanders at the surface level is in the atlas, and the state, who manages it, who does it belong to, who is responsible, contact information, it's all in there. We host, for instance, also the flood hazard and risk maps that we have to report to Europe in the Floods Directive and the Water Framework Directive. And we also have tools like the building score tool if you apply for a building permit, or if you sell your house or your parcel of land in Flanders, somebody will use the tool to check whether it's flood prone, and depending on the score you get there are restrictions, or the buyer knows what he's buying. So this is also the kind of stuff that we host. So in that way, we think we try to be a digital twin of the water system in Flanders, but are we really? In a way, yes. So we as Water Info, we are the shell or the face of several models and databases and applications, and also platforms. We have different platforms. We operate there are two GIS platforms, two GIS systems that we try to seamlessly integrate, and they power water info from a GIS perspective. But what we do is mostly surface hydrology, hydrometry, a little bit with the data we publish, also hydrography, for instance, the water atlas. What we don't do, or what we do a little bit, is meteorology. For meteorology, we have a little bit of rainfall gauges we operate ourselves, or the Flanders government, different agencies operate, and we publish the data. But for most of our meteorology, we rely on the Royal Meteorological Institute, so which is at the federal level. So they also provide us with the meteorological forecasting that we use as an input for the hydrological models. Also water quality, we publish a little bit of data on water quality, but most of it is actually published by our colleagues at the Flanders Environment Agency. Also, groundwater hydrology is not in there. It's by a different agency, which has its own different platform. Also, other things like drinking water, also navigation information for shipping. It's a completely different platform. It's called Visuris, and then you have the URIS system, which is the European equivalent. Also, very important water-related information. So, are we really the digital twin of the water system in Flanders? I was looking for an image of a digital twin, and then it looks a little bit like this. You have this near-perfect digital representation of the person, and we like to think with Water Info that we are the face of it, so we are the public-facing portal for all this information and all these modeling results. And it's a perfect representation of the water system, but actually in reality, when you look a little bit behind, sometimes it looks a little bit more like this. So we have a whole lot of smaller twins of parts of the water system. They all look alike, and they interoperate. In some ways they are different also, in critical ways they are different, but we all try to work together on our own goals, but also on a common goal in Flanders. And sometimes we have to do shenanigans like build those pipes to have everything work together. So even for a kind of a niche system, when you see Destination Earth, tries to be a digital representation of the world, of the Earth, even if you look at something niche as the water system in Flanders, you still have these many small things with many different actors. They all have their own tools, they all have their own applications. Sometimes we work on our own goals, sometimes we work together, but that's a little bit our daily reality, and it's still one of my daily working problems, is where you position yourself on that scale between everybody does its own thing and collaborates on one-off projects, or we try to be really this nice, seamless integration of do everything, this perfect representation of the world, which would be nice because sometimes we can get questions like, can we use your flood models to also model low water conditions? Or can we use those models to track our ecological targets or some things like that? And it's always looking a little bit for what in an ideal case would be this perfect thing that can model and everything and do everything. In practice, it's not always like that. So you have to be aware of the different actors, the different goals, the different tools. And that's a little bit my handover to the rest of the session today.
Which button is it?
I think this is the big blue button.
Thank you very much, Wilms. That was a great introduction to the session and gives a bit of insight as to what's actually happening and what we aspire to be in terms of a digital twin, but actually what's going on in the background is really important as well. So look, now we're going to run this session as a workshop, and really what we want to try and do is our desired outcomes from this session. What we really want to try to do is capture this audience. We've got we've got people attending online, we've got all of you in the room, and we want to capture your expertise to actually understand what will be the most useful output from DestinE into the future. And to do that, we actually want to get you thinking into the future and put yourself in a different persona. And I'll talk you through, you've hopefully all seen the little cards dotted around the room. And those of you online, don't worry, I'll tell you a bit more about those in a minute. But we want you to try and think into the future so that you're actually not just thinking about what DestinE needs now or what you need now, but actually what will future users need? And actually who might those future users be as well? So it's to try and put a little bit of a different lens on it. So that's the intention of today. We're going to be gathering all of your input and having a look and seeing how this might evolve into the future, specifically with respect to the water cycle, because I know there's lots of different discussions happening here on the whole potential of DestinE itself. So the way we're going to run this workshop is we're going to assign each of you personas. So we want you to think of, hopefully I'll talk to them in a bit more detail, but we want you to think of a different perspective, okay? And then we're going to talk through different future scenarios. I'm going to ask you all to imagine different worlds, what the world might look like in 2050. And then we're going to generate these ideas of how we might use DestinE in that future. So these are the little cards you'll see dotted around the room. There's a QR code on the screen. So for those of you who have seen a card and looking at it thinking, I have absolutely no interest in representing this persona, and I should say, this doesn't need to represent your day-to-day job. It is to try and get you to think of a different lens, okay? And then the scenarios. The scenarios are the different futures that we've generated, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So the personas, first of all. And sorry, if any of you are struggling to capture the QR code, there are QR codes dotted around the room as well. So there's 16 different personas, okay? And the idea is we've tried to represent the various people who are currently working around in the water cycle, but actually will also work in the water cycle into the future. And each of those cards has a descriptor of what that role might look like. But if you turn it over on the back, we also taught a little bit about, well, what might that person's values be? What might their motivations? What might they be aiming to do through that role? So again, have a look at the long list if you prefer online, if you don't want to use the one in person. On the PDF, you'll see the full list with all of the details of the different personas. And then to talk about the scenarios. So the idea is to try and get you all to think in 2050. We're not here now. Where are we in 2050? What does the world look like? And the reason we thought that we've picked a kind of a 2x2 matrix. You've got too much or too little water, or you've got centralized versus, the governance, centralized versus distributed management. So William just gave us a great example of the distributed management. We've some great examples as well, though, of centralized management of water systems. So the world might develop very differently in the future. And particularly, it's quite important for the EU because in 2050, we might have all of those different scenarios across the wide breadth of what the EU covers at the moment geographically. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you a very brief overview of each of these scenarios, but I will say on the QR codes, there is more detail. And the QR code isn't there, but hopefully you've already captured it. It's in the same one as the personas. What I'm going to ask you to do is, those of you online, you need to pay attention to this first one, because we're going to break you up into groups into the room. Our original intention was to get you moving and talking. This room is not going to facilitate that. So we're going to get those online to pay most attention to the water wars one. So the water wars is this idea of we have too little water and we have centralized governance. Imagine you're in 2050. There's not enough water to go around. Wars are fought over how this water is managed and distributed. You're telling on your neighbours because they are not using water efficiently. That is the future of this water wars. So we want people to think in that environment where there really is not enough to go around and a very centralised, controlled system. I'm going to ask those of you on the left-hand side of the room to pay attention now, because you're going to be considering a future called the hydroverse, where we've got that centralised governance again, but this time we've too much water. So effectively, we've got persistent flooding, we've got rising sea levels, we've got this causing mass migration. It's changing how we develop our cities. You've got your inland high-rise cities. Those are the ones that actually we're causing huge immigration to. You've got very data-rich, very good monitoring to understand how water is being distributed and how the flooding is being managed, but it is all very bureaucratic and really causing population displacement. Those of you on the right-hand side of the room, I want you to pay attention now, because these are going to be our aqua influencers, and these are the people who have too little water, but it's a very distributed system. So it's very community-led. Our rivers are collapsing, our aquifers are not yielding enough water, and in this environment, you need to work with your neighbours, okay? So it's a distributed system where people are actually, need to work with their neighbours, need to have a lot of collaboration to get the most out of what we can, to get the most out of our resources in this future. And the final scenario is for those of you down the centre of the room, and again, we can be quite loose with these boundaries, so don't get too stressed about that. But in this future, blue co-op future, what we'd like you to do is think about a future where there's too much water and there's distributed governance. And in this model, we have people where we've got farmers, trying to manage and work with their neighbours, and we've got flooding, widespread, and how to actually deal with that. So we've got some examples here of use cases, because what we're going to do is we're going to get you to think through, in each of those future scenarios from your personas, we're going to get you to think through 4 different aspects of the water cycle, where there's tools already being developed on DestinE, and you can see some great examples online. So we've pulled out an example here for each of the ones, but this is just an illustrative piece, just to kind of let you think about some ideas of what it might look like in the future. So for example, we'll ask you a question around source to sea and digital continuum. And you'll see the first example here is the flood pilot signal. And there's some great example there when you look online where they're taking kind of active rainfall data. They're really trying to manage it and kind of monitor on a live basis to really show where flooding risks are into the future. We've got the managing water abstraction, where they're talking about changes in the water cycle. We've got the local digital twins, and that is the Italy example there is where they're really using this data to actually understand there's ongoing droughts, what's happening, so what are the impacts of that, and can they highlight hotspot areas, and can they highlight future risks? And then we have strategic planning for nature restoration. This algal store, one that's already been developed, that's actually focused specifically on the Baltic Sea, and specifically around kind of predicting, using data to predict algal blooms and how they might impact the future. So the Slido is going to start now, if you wouldn't mind just trying again. And what we want you to do is you're going to be asked to select your persona. Okay, so you're going to be asked, that's the first thing you're going to be asked. We're not going to show this on the screen. We're going to ask you to first select your persona. So if you can all go ahead and get the Slido. And then you're going to be asked to select your future. And that's just so that when we're looking at this data, because like I said, we're trying to get this to be a really functional exercise, that we can actually gather this data and look back and get some genuine user inputs into the future. So if you select your scenario and select your persona, we will then ask 4 questions that will appear on the Slido, and we'll hopefully have a bit of a discussion through those. And what I'd also encourage you is, my colleague Liliana is going to come and take over now, and when she is asking the questions, I'd encourage you to maybe, you'll have a couple of minutes to think through each. Talk to your neighbour, while you're typing. It doesn't need to be a sole exercise where you're all sitting here in silence. Super.
Thank you. Slide, no? Okay. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you all for being today here. So, as Catherine has explained, we are today in a parallel universe, and the D-Day is coming. So, first of all, you need to pick up the person that you are going to be in a parallel universe. Okay. The second thing that you should do is choosing the scenario that you will working on. So water wars, the hydroverse, aquafluencer, and the blue cup. So Catherine already divided you, but if you forget, Catherine, can you again say how you divided the room?
Those online are the water wars. The hydroverse is the left. The blue co-op, I think, was the right, and the aqua influencer was the middle. Apologies if I've confused anyone. I think that was my note.
So, now that you've chosen person and scenario that you're going to work on, it's very important to answer the following question. And in principle, that means how DestinE can help strategic nature restoration. And that is, please do it put yourself in shoes from the persona that you chose and try to answer that question from that perspective. It would be nice to chat firstly to your neighbor or neighbors if you are like 3 in the row. Just briefly discuss this and then type the answer. No interaction, no? Just turn around, find a neighbor, find another decision maker, find another water quality person, authority one. Yeah. Yeah, I like the noise. So you can
We have probably different scenarios, or it's
yeah, doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Just chat. I really love the noise from the room. Given the time, I would now ask you to stop chatting to your neighbor. And yes, do I have a volunteer to answer this question, or should I just pick just an answer? So, forecasting the realistic what-if scenarios. Who put that up? Is that someone from the room or online? Okay.
So I have to explain it?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. So there is a lot of talk about different kind of simulations and what destinationers can provide. I think the key word here is having the realistic simulations. In my case, I was more focusing on the long-term forecast, but it also applies for extreme events as well, I guess. So having these realistic short-term scenarios.
And quick models, right?
Sorry?
And quick models.
Yes.
So
exactly.
that you don't spend like months to build a model and then now like weeks, 1 week to run it, but some quick insight, right?
Well, if you're dealing with climate scale, then 1 week is not much, but yeah, in operational scale, yeah. Quick and fast models.
Okay. Thank you very much. I see that 3 more participants are typing, but given that shall we just go to another question? So, the same. Chat to your neighbor about water abstraction. How can DestinE help water abstraction from the again from the perspective of the person that you are today only in this room, and what happens in this room stays in the room. So, so what extra considerations are there for using DestinE? And don't forget, it's the day, is the D-Day. We are dying soon. I'm joking, we are not dying. Chat to your neighbor. There was one question about defining what water source is best to be used. Is that question from this audience or from online, from the online group? Okay. Let me, make switches in water pipe systems? Who was that? No one? Okay. In the back. Okay.
So the idea is how to, then you can regulate the water supply to every individual by making switches.
What do you mean by switches?
Just to turn it on and turn it off so that everybody gets a certain supply of water which they can use every day.
So like restrictions of water?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming from Serbia and I must tell you, having restrictions, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We live in a different
it's
era,
a different, yeah. But you know, we live in a very developed in very developed countries, and customers are pretty loud. So imagine what would have happened if they apparently are without water. So that is something that is definitely going to be challenging, but I agree restrictions could help divide the scarce water. Yeah.
It would also be more fair, maybe.
Yeah.
You could also argue that.
Yeah, but that has to be legally then checked. What is fair and what is not fair, right?
Yeah.
Okay, nice, thanks. There was something about citizen and DestinE, inform citizens about capabilities of DestinE. Was that question from this room? Yes, super. I'm good in guessing the questions so far.
Yes, thank you. I have to say that I'm a non-profit officer, and my motivation is that water is a human and ecosystem right, or has a human and ecosystem right. And I think, in my scenario, I have to say, there's too much water and it's a distributed governance. And I think here it's very important also that if we are using DestinE for decision making, in this case to manage water abstraction, it's very important to include your environment, all the citizens around, to explain what DestinE is doing, what are the results of DestinE, how can we interpret these results so that everyone is understanding why we are using DestinE in this case.
And that DestinE exists, right?
Right.
On the first place.
On the first place, that's right.
Yes, thank you very much. One more question. Anticipate risk of climate change to predict effects on water resources and adaptation of abstraction means. Oh. No one? So my guess was not that good. Does anyone else has another question? So this is okay, but water abstraction is okay. Then we might move to another question, given the time. Source to sea, so all cycle. How can DestinE support managing all different activities from source to sea? Chat to your neighbor. I think that the discussion with your neighbor who has a different role than you. So how DestinE can support better source-to-sea management? Chat to your neighbor. Chat to your neighbor. That is the slogan of today, chat to your neighbor. I like this one, data and evidence-based management across the entire river basin. Who was that? No one. Allow linkage of the tools that currently represent the different parts of the water cycle. Anyone from this room? No. Using flow models combined with sensors monitoring chemical composition and backward analytics to track the chemicals. We are shy today. Yeah.
Actually, this is possible to do.
PFAS?
Sorry?
PFAS or something else? PFAS.
PFAS,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, and other particles, nitrogen, all sorts of particles. You have sensors along the rivers, and then you can identify, you can find the chemicals, the particles out in the sea, and actually with the modeling, both river models and ocean modeling, you can backtrack where they origin from
So
these.
you can track it to the company,
To the
for
source.
instance,
Yeah.
that is polluting the
Yep.
water, and
Yep.
then also
Yep. So
inform decision making.
So then you can, source to sea will be then evident. So this is an environmental engineer perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is your perspective, your role today, or the role?
Well, actually, we have a project
Okay.
that is doing something similar. Maybe not so fancy as I described there, but there is actually possible to backtrack sources today. And we are following, so the what you call the catchment of when you have a flooding, the catchment area, and if you have sensors along that, you can follow then and use ocean modeling, so the flow models, plume models, etc. in the ocean. We do that already for the Oslo Fjord, actually, which is in bad shape.
Yeah, thank you very much. Could be used as a discussion basis for competing interests along a river. So that is interest, simulate impacts of different management approaches. Does this question come from the room? Yes, nice. I was not looking at your phone.
No. So I'm a community representative body, and
Nice.
the interest, of course, here is to get everybody, all the stakeholders, I guess, who have a stake in this management on board, who uses a trusted common platform or information source to manage the different aspects. And this is a complex system because it's interlinked, of course, and to have that discussion, that's what I would need the system for.
Thank you very much. Does anyone from the room has a question to the audience? Another question, like an urgent, hot question that we can use? No. Okay, let's move to the next one. We have 10 minutes more. So local digital twins. So again, looking from the perspective of your persona today, how DestinE can help actually supporting local digital twins. Talk to your neighbor. First talk. I think now people are talking more than typing, right? So it's either talking or typing. I have two questions. First is, I see DestinE as more suitable for large-scale decision-making rather than for local management. And the second question that I saw was like interoperability between local models or digital twins. Could you tell me if some of you put that? Yeah. The floor is yours.
Yes, because when it comes to water, definitely there are issues. Even though it's local, you have neighbors upstream or downstream. So in order to have the best information, you need to be able to combine it with your neighbor, in a meaningful way. That's what I mean, interoperable.
Yeah.
Even though Destination Earth, well, actually Destination Earth is, my neighbor is saying it's global, so a more like, bigger perspective. Yeah. Okay. But still, I think that there are very often conflicts related to water management, and to have like at least have the common data and the common the modeling, so you know that you base your disagreements on the same facts. It could actually work like that.
So, in principle, have a discussion, constructive discussion with your neighbor, like today, right? Okay, given the time, I think we have 5 minutes more. I would just quickly like to wrap up this session and to have a brief recap. There are many things that you delivered today, many different answers. We will definitely go and analyze them and structure them. One more question. There was one more question. Wrapping. The most important I forgot. Yeah, that always happened to me. So how do you imagine DestinE shaping the future of digitalization in the water sector? For this one, you don't need to talk to your neighbor. So for this one, you can just type your answers, and then we will analyze your input from today and make sure that we disseminate the outcomes of this workshop today in the coming weeks. So before wrapping up, from what I see, it's all about models, data, tools. But what I think is that co-creation is very important, so that different stakeholders, different personas come together. So please talk to your neighbors. And thank you very much for your attendance today.